You just found out from your boss that you have to read this in public tomorrow. For a lot of people whose English is not their first language, this could be a nightmare. You worry about your pronunciation, your delivery, your confidence. Am I going to speak too fast, too slow? Well, on this video, I'm going to teach you how to conquer this with confidence and clarity, regardless of whether English is your first language or not. Hey there, I'm Gabriel from GB Voice Academy, your accent reduction instructor to get you that much closer to mastering the American accent. If you haven't yet subscribed to my YouTube channel so you get access to all of my practice videos, also check out my 5-star best-selling accent reduction course with reviews from people all over the world, as well as my other communication courses. Now, when we see something that's this big and this intimidating, what happens to our brain? Our brain sees this whole thing at a macro level. It becomes overwhelming for the brain to process. So we're going to be conquering this with these 3 nautical terms: islands, anchors, and waves. You're probably wondering, was this guy at sea recently? Why is he using nautical terms? You'll see what I mean very soon. As you know, Americans love to chit-chat. They love to small talk. But believe it or not, there is a pattern. There are song notes, if you will, that we could learn, regardless if English is your first language or not. And I'm going to teach you that on this video. And make sure to stick around to the end of this video because I'm going to show you how to implement this strategy in everyday conversations with other fellow Americans. And we're going to be using the famous speech done by Ronald Reagan in 1986 of the Challenger explosion that happened on live TV. This is an emotional delivery. And with this approach I'm going to teach you, you'll be able to deliver it with the exact intention of the writer. So for example, if you have a presentation that you wrote, you need to be able to deliver it because you could be a great writer. A lot of my clients, English is not their first language. They come to me with very thick accents, but they write brilliantly. Well, that's useless if you can't deliver that in public. You could have perfect American pronunciation. If you don't have the American rhythm and the pitch and the pacing and the range intact, it's still going to sound foreign and people are still going to discriminate you. My parents were a victim of accent discrimination. That's what got me into this whole accent reduction business in the first place. So now, let's start from the top here. I know this looks intimidating, but you have to be able to break it down visually. So, islands. What do I mean by islands? In every big speech, there are sections that we have to separate. So for example, our first island would be, we've grown used to wonders in this century, right? That is a sentence. That is a whole island. It stands alone. So if you look at it by just island by island, it makes it easier to digest versus we've grown used to wonders in this century. It's hard to dazzle us, but for 25 years, we're jumping island to island. We're not separating it. So the listener is not able to process it. Remember, 2 people have to process this, the person reading it as well as the listener. So we have to give them the space. That's what I mean by islands. Each section has space, water around it so it could stand alone. So we've determined the island here. So now what do I mean by anchor? Think of anchor like words that give the island structure. Words that are important to the intention of the sentence. What are the important anchor words in this particular island? We've grown what? Used to. Used to what? Wonders. We've grown used to wonders. And when? In this century. We've grown used to wonders in this century. So by underlining the anchor words, it gives the island rhythm. And you hear it all the time in Shakespeare. To be or not to be. Romeo, Romeo, where art thou, Romeo? If we just read it through, Romeo, Romeo, where art thou, Romeo, it loses its charm. It loses its potency. Now, what do I mean by waves? Waves is the tonality of the sentence. If we read this island straight through with the anchor words and no tone, we've grown used to wonders in the century. There's no emotion to it. The waves adds emotion. We could start high and work our way down. We've grown used to wonders in this century. I started from here and I work my way down. So do you see how these 3 things coexisting to create a very potent and emotional delivery? There's a lot more to it. Let's move on. It's hard to dazzle us. Whereas that's a second island, right? There's a second island. It's what? It's hard to what? Dazzle us. So here we have our 2 anchor words and our island. Now let's put that together. And I started high. It's hard to dazzle us. You notice that each island starts high and it sort of works its way down. And then the next island we kind of go up again and then we work our way down while emphasizing our anchor words. You see how all this is working together? So when we put it together, we've grown used to wonders in this century. It's hard to dazzle us. All of a sudden, we sound like poets. See how implementable this is? Everything could be learned. Don't get intimidated by these wonderful speakers. It's unattainable. It is. They follow a method I'm teaching you on this video. Moving on. But for how long? But for 25 years, that is obviously an anchor word. The United States Space Program, what? The United States Space Program has been doing just that. You could feel the anchor words. This isn't analytical. This isn't, I must choose the anchor word after the third sentence. It's emotional. The emotion is telling you what to emphasize. But for 25 years, the United States Space Program has been doing just that. Again, I've identified the third island. I started here, and I emphasized the anchors as I went down. Now, what happens if I went the other way? But for 25 years, the United States program has been doing just that. It doesn't sound as powerful. It doesn't have the potency of starting the island high and working your way down. Moving on. We've grown used to the idea of space. There is another island. Remember, islands don't have to be a sentence. It could be a phrase within a sentence, like this one. We've what? We've grown used to what? The idea of space. And again, I went up and I worked my way down. And perhaps we forgot, what did we do? We forgot that we've only just begun. Moving on to identify the next island. We're still pioneers. Now this is a very potent sentence. The whole point of this sentence is to tell us that regardless of where we were, we are still pioneers. What is the anchor word in that island? Still. Pioneers. Wouldn't work if we were still pioneers. No potency at all. You could have the most incredible authors writing you the most incredible stuff, but if you're not able to deliver it with this kind of juice, it's gonna fall flat. And if you're reading something your boss gave you, or a coworker gave you, or something that you have to present, I'm telling you, the writer of that is gonna embrace you with emotion at the end of this, because like, I didn't know how beautiful my stuff sounded. And you could implement this in anything. I have people who work in the high-level technology companies who deliver the most dry, mundane information, but you can make that sound like gold with this system. Moving on. They, the members of the Challenger crew were pioneers. The were is the word here, because we're talking about the unfortunate events of the crew members of that spaceship. It is emotional. So now that you're a little more familiar with the island anchor waves approach, I'm going to continue reading this a little more fluently, and I want you to pay attention on your own what islands I'm creating, what anchor words I'm using, and the range waves to deliver it. And I want to say something to the school children of America. That is another island who are watching the live coverage of the shuttle's takeoff. I know it's hard to understand. What? Hard to understand. But sometimes painful things like this happen. You could hear those anchor words. It's so clear. It's all part of the process of exploration and discovery. So when you do these anchor words, it automatically slows you down. A lot of the mother tongues of people with accents are very fast. It's all part of the process of exploration and discovery. Americans, especially when it comes to delivering something as potent as this, we have to slow down. It's emotional. It's got weight to it. We have to honor this. The audience is very sensitive. So they, like us, have to be able to digest this with space between the what? The islands. I know it's hard to understand. But sometimes painful things like this happen. It's all part of the process of exploration and discovery. It's all part of taking a chance and expanding man's horizons. The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. The future doesn't what? Belong to the what? The faint-hearted. It belongs to who? The brave. The Challenger crew was pulling us into the future as we'll continue. As we'll what? Continue to follow them. Do you get how these patterns are working now? Now this stuff could be implemented in anything. I want to thank everyone for really pulling your weight. Our revenue numbers are through the roof, and I'm confident that we could take it to the next level next quarter, even in day-to-day conversation. Hey, George, I just want to say, I think what you're doing is amazing. And I would love to be able to pick your brains over dinner next week. All this stuff would have fallen flat had we not implemented our islands, our anchors, and our waves. Remember, guys, when you are delivering something that you work so hard for, whether it's a presentation, whether it's how you feel, any public performance of any kind, it means a lot to you. You put a lot of hard work into it. You have to honor that with the right delivery. And the beautiful thing about spacing this out with the islands, finding your anchor words, and adding the wave is that forces you to slow down, which will then help you with the American pronunciation. So if you implement this system along with the pronunciation videos I have here on this channel, together, you're going to get that much closer to mastering the American accent.